Squid Game is very deadly, but there are 7 players who represent an evil far worse: the 7 deadly sins. Greed is the overwhelming desire to gain even at the cost of others, and it's the sin that Sang-woo embodied. Why Sang-woo represents this sin better than the other 400 players is because his greed began long before he found himself in the game.
I'm afraid that Mr. Cho Sang-woo has a warrant out for his arrest. He's charged with forgery, embezzlement, crimes that are all some form of financial fraud.
As a successful businessman, Sang-woo's greed drove him to siphon money from his clients to invest it in the future market, but the investment failed, leading him to fall into so much debt that he became wanted by the Korean police. The greed that landed him in the Squid Games manifested into something more evil and deadly when there was no law or moral code binding him anymore. At first, he was a pillar of strength in the games. He helped Gi-hoon form an alliance and guided others, but as the games grew more brutal, Sang-woo's greed began to show its true face.
Jerk! You pretended not to know how this works!
In the marble games, he tricked Ali into handing over his marbles.
Player 199 eliminated.
Then came Sae-byuk. When she was critically injured, Sang-woo coldly took her life to ensure his spot in the final round. But in the final game, we see an arc of redemption where he takes his own life, trusting Gi-hoon to care for his mother. Greed had destroyed him, but hopefully his last act restored a little bit of his humanity. Sadly, the same can be said for this guy, the embodiment of wrath. Wrath in Jang Deok-soo's story is an all-consuming fire, burning through reason, kindness, and trust.
And now you're gonna die, you fucking asshole!
Player 101 embodied this sin by letting his aggression and violence dictate his every move, but beneath his tough exterior lay a man driven by fear, insecurity, and the inability to let go of control.
Man, you used to act like such a tough guy, babe. What happened to you? Oh, man, you're pathetic.
You're just an ugly old bitch.
Before entering the games, Deok-soo was a feared and ruthless gangster. This lifestyle did not only ignite a vengeful inferno in his eyes, but left him drowning in debt. From the moment he joined the games, his wrath was already a part of him. He bullied and intimidated others, quickly forming a gang of followers to assert dominance.
You saw us, huh?
In one of his darkest moments, he incited a nighttime riot, plunging the dormitory into chaos and leading to the deaths of 27 players.
We're just helping cull the herd.
His end came fittingly at the hands of Minyo. She pulled him down with her in a murder-suicide during the Stepping Stones game, ending his reign of terror.
You've got such a tiny dick.
You goddamn bitch!
Classic poetic justice soothingly unleashed by the perfect embodiment of envy. Envy is a creeping, consuming flood that soaks up the soul, leaving only heaviness and bitterness behind. For Han Minyo, this flood took over her every action. She was desperate to have what others possessed: power, respect, and a sense of belonging. But no matter what she did, it always seemed just out of reach. From the very beginning, Minyo's need to feel important was as clear as the giant piggy bank above her head. But to get there, she needed to conquer all who possessed the quiet strength she didn't, which only made her envy them.
Players down from 107 to 80. That means we killed 27? Right, old man?
She clung to Jang Deok-soo like a knapsack, not because of love or loyalty, but because she wanted his control over the others. She wanted to stand in his shadow, to share in his strength, to feel untouchable.
Swear to stick together right to the end.
Get up! God, this bitch so pathetic.
Her breaking point came when Deok-soo betrayed her, discarding her like she was nothing. The pain of being cast aside turned her envy into something sharper than those glass shards. And speaking of glasses, Minyo faced her biggest opponent one last time. With tears in her eyes and fury in her voice, she clung to him and pulled him down with her, because if she couldn't rise, why should he?
Did you believe I'd really die so you could go on?
Classic envy. Now, let's talk about pride. Oh Il-nam looks like a kind, helpless old man you'd want to protect, but underneath his frailty was a proud and cunning mastermind who embodies the deadly sin of pride. His pride came from his belief that his wealth gave him the right to toy with the lives of others as if they were no more than pieces on the game board.
재미가 있을까?
재미로 그런 짓을 시켰다고?
Looking back at his origin, Oh Il-nam grew up poor. His childhood was characterized by hardship and deprivation, but as he amassed wealth, his compassion faded, replaced by a deep arrogance. Instead of growing compassion from his struggles, he let his success harden him. He became bored with his riches, thinking money could buy anything, even the thrill of life and death.
보는 것이 하는 것보다 더 재미있을 수가 없지.
Even when he joined the games, Il-nam's pride was on display. He pretended to be weak and confused, hiding his sharp mind behind a warm smile. He manipulated players like Gi-hun into trusting him, using their kindness against them.
What'd you wager?
In the marbles game, he acted senile, letting Gi-hun believe he had the upper hand. This wasn't weakness, but arrogance, a belief that he could control anyone, even in the face of death. That's why it didn't make much sense that his death was calm and serene, quite a peaceful passing for the man who caused so much suffering. For someone who lived by the pain and desperation of others, there was no reckoning, no justice. He left the world as he lived, untouched by the horrors he created, while others carried the scars of his pride, especially the young Ji-young, our embodiment of sloth. Sloth is a terrible sin. It's worse than being lazy. Imagine giving up on yourself, letting life pass by without fighting for it. At first, it was hard identifying who best showed this sin in the show, Ali Abdul or Ji-young. I mean, both characters let Sloth take hold in their own heartbreaking ways, though their reasons were very different. Ali Abdul was strong and kind, a good man who deserved so much better, but he didn't do enough to secure his own survival. The saddest moment was in the marbles game. Ali trusted Sang-woo completely, handing over his marbles without question, but his faith in Sang-woo cost him everything, and the betrayal made it all the more tragic. Ji-young, on the other hand, gave up on life long before the games began. Her story is one of pain and loss. Having lost her family left her broken inside. She joined the games not to survive, but because she had nothing else to live for.
I have nothing.
What?
You got a reason to get out of this place. But I don't.
The most painful moment was when she gave up her life to let Se-byuk live. We see her smiling as she sacrificed herself, but that smile was filled with sadness. Lust isn't always about love or attraction. Sometimes it's the use of charm to serve selfish goals. Deciding who embodied this sin more is tricky too, but in the end, it has to be this guy.
Scumbag. I don't want to have to keep calling you back. Sit down. Here.
What pretty eyes you have.
If you can satisfy me in 5 minutes, I'll change your life.
And we already know how this story ends. And our next character was so intoxicated with this same faulty passion, he took the jackpot home. Food is good for growth, wine is good for taste, but gluttony makes one go on and on until it's just too much, leading to overindulgence. It's a risky affair, though some might confuse it for pleasure at the expense of something far too expensive. For Song Gi-hun, his gluttony lies in how he gives into his impulses, chasing momentary satisfaction and ignoring the damages it causes. Gi-hun is a man addicted to gambling. He bets away what little money he has, hoping for a big win, but it's never enough. Even when he wins, it's fleeting like the wind. He even uses his daughter's birthday money for gambling and only buys her fried chicken as an afterthought. His actions hurt those he loves, especially his sick mother who continues to work tirelessly while he wastes his time and money.
160 million won owed just to loan sharks, and you owe 250 more to the bank.
This is a terrible lifestyle he also brings into the games. In the Honeycomb Challenge, he takes a risky shape for the thrill of it, which nearly cost him his life. His choices appear not always thought through. They are driven by the same hunger for excitement and escape that fueled his gambling. But Gi-hun isn't as heartless as his actions. His gluttony is tied to deeper wounds. The regret for his failures as a father, guilt for how he's treated his mother, and the feeling of being trapped in a life when nothing ever seems to go right. These emotions push him to overindulge, not just in gambling, but in his belief that a sudden windfall could fix everything. Windfalls don't last long, and though he wins at the end, Gi-hun has to confront the weight of his actions, because the victory he so much sacrificed for doesn't bring him the peace he craves. Rather, it brings him face to face with the emptiness that gluttony leaves behind.